Yeah, so let's get to it. First things first, what I do, I usually start off with a circle, a square, any type of shape to kind of get my sketch going. I usually work real rough starting off, depending on um, what type of image I'm going for, what kind of look. And I usually work really colorful. This is just really quick, kind of just a rough sketch where you can kind of get an idea of what I'm looking for, what I'm looking to do. So this character, I'm basically drawing John Lewis, who is a big time activist, civil rights activist, and somebody that I was very privileged to meet at my graduation. So I always like to kind of draw him. I don't think he gets a lot of credit. Kind of lost some footage during my process, the beginning of it, so I had to go in and redo certain things, but you can kind of see here where it picked up at. And a lot of times when I'm drawing, like especially the early stage, I'll go through some really bad drawings and just playing around. And as you can see, there's a lot of cross hatching. Usually I work with a lot of color, but for this specific piece, especially with Representative John Lewis and everything he's been through, I wanted something really kind of gritty, you know. So I went with a textured cross hatch and just a bunch of, you know, I just wanted different textures from when he got beat on the Pettus Bridge. So, and you can see I'm just adding some highlights where I want the light to come from, just beaming off his back. And although a lot of those guys got, you know, those men and women got beat pretty bad on that bridge, I wanted to, this is me creating John Lewis as almost like a superhero character in another universe. Maybe he came back and this time he was throwing hands and whooping everybody. So what I'm doing now, I'm going in and just kind of cleaning up some stuff. At this point I've already flattened the image, so I'm going in, fixing certain details, you know, the thumb. And I'm really picky when I'm drawing, so I'll go back and forth and make changes and try different things, exaggerate certain body parts and things like that. Like I said, I usually work with a lot of colors, but for this one I just wanted it to be real raw, gritty, with a lot of texture, just to show like a little bit of pain, struggle, but just constantly cleaning up stuff, adding a little more detail. And at this point I've been working on the my 32-inch Cintiq, so it's a lot easier for me with this huge screen, because it's almost like, I mean, this thing's so big, you kind of become the painting or the artwork that you're doing, because you're drawing all over the screen, which I love. Just going in and fixing some, you know, finger joints and things like that, a couple of shadows, added more hand wrap. And I wanted to make sure I got the hand wrap correct. As somebody, I used to box back in the day. I was training for the 2008 Olympics in 2005, and Hurricane Katrina kind of messed that up, and I had to leave where I was living and evacuate. But definitely love boxing and any physical activity, sport, you know, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So as John Lewis was a fighter, it just made sense to make him a fighter, you know. So just adding a couple little highlights. Like I said, once again, just little things here and there to make stuff shine. A couple little details. And what a lot of people don't know about John Lewis, and maybe they do, but he led more than 600 peaceful protesters across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. And he did that to demonstrate the need for voting rights in the state of Alabama. So it was at a time where they had segregation and all of that. So he led the fight to end legalized segregation and try to overturn the Jim Crow laws. And he was a freedom fighter. In 1961, he was beaten unconscious in Montgomery, and he sustained a fractured skull while leading a march for voting rights from Selma, Alabama. So anytime I draw Representative John Lewis, man, I try to make him really dope, man. Like I said, he was a fighter. He's been in some nasty stuff, you know, involving police and things like that, government. So it seems like it's just right to kind of give him his due. And another cool thing that people don't know is that I got to meet John Lewis at my graduation, and he was the commencement speaker. So I graduated in 2018 from the Art Institute, and I was one of the commencement speakers, and I did get the privilege to meet him, which was really cool. So super exciting to meet him, and now I get to just keep his legacy alive as much as I can. So going back to the artwork though, you see I'm just adding a couple more details, like the blacks. I want to be black all the way, just to, so it's not such a white to gray to dark gray. I want it to really pop, and you see the shadows are really dark, and you see the whites are really white from the lighting and things like that. So now I kind of zoom in, and I'm looking at certain details that I like, I don't like. You know, obviously I'm looking at a picture of John Lewis's face, and you know, the angle of it I have to kind of work with. So I kind of exaggerated his jawline on the left hand side. It's not really like that. It's more, it goes kind of straight down, but since it's me drawing, of course I'm gonna exaggerate some things, and as long as I get the main features down where you know it's John Lewis, that's my goal. So here, as you can see, I'm just continuing to clean up highlights, you know, chin, things like that. And I always like to put like bruises and things like that on him, because he did get beat like this, you know, him and along with a couple other people. So although it wasn't an unfortunate event, you know, he did pave the way for a lot of these benefits that we do have. So shout out to John Lewis. Here we go again. I'm so picky, and so I'm going in, cleaning up, still adding more little highlights, and more of as I study his face at the reference that I use for his face, just making sure I'm getting certain features right, you know. I definitely had a lot of fun working on this piece. And you can see right here, I'm getting like, you know, he's got very prominent nostrils, his nose, lips, very strong features. So I just wanted to make sure I hit on all of those, you know. I zoomed in a lot, zoomed out a lot, really small. The other video that I lost is where I was flipping the image, which is super crucial if you're an artist. I think when you flip the image, you get to see like the imperfections of, you know, the balance, the weight of you know, are the eyes matching up and things like this, like the size, and you get to really see it from a different angle. So it'll actually kind of scare you at the first few times you do it, because you're not used to it. But when you start to kind of get the hang of it, you flipping back and forth, you'll see like, okay, yeah, I need to fix this, need to fix that. And that's exactly what I did at the beginning, which was lost in my earlier video, excuse me. But yeah, right here I'm just going in, fixing eyes. And at first I had like eyelashes on there that they were too strong, too big. I didn't like that, so I went and cleaned certain things up and continue to add different highlights and things. So that's what you're seeing here. Shadows again. And I didn't want to just use the same type of grays. I was going in using grays with a little bit of blue in there, dark gray, light gray. I would use big strokes, small strokes, like really fine strokes for different parts of the features that I wanted to really portray in this image. So that's kind of what you see going on right now. Like, it doesn't look like much is happening, but I think right here is where I started using like a dark black, but the brush was so thin that I was able to make little small subtle changes, which I love. So, and then right here, as you can see, we have I was kind of debating like when I'm drawing and designing a character or something like that, I'm thinking about, like if it'll look cool on a t-shirt or things like that, or a flyer or somewhere it can be used. And that's why you see the gray scribbles in the background. I was just testing stuff out if I wanted to make like a little kind of almost like a reverse frame for it where it's just a background. And what you see me doing now, I'm drawing the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is in Selma, and that is where John Lewis led more than 600 peaceful protesters across. So, and at the end of that bridge, you had all those police waiting, and that's where they, it was a nasty event that went down. And also, you can see at the bottom, John Lewis is known for that phrase "good trouble," which I love dearly, which is meaningful because he said meaningful change often requires disruption, confrontation, and a willingness to challenge the unjust system. So, good trouble is all of that packed into one. So, I always, anytime I draw John Lewis, it's gonna say good trouble on it somewhere. And as you can see, I put some more kind of scratches and maybe some bandages on his face and on his body and things like that. Just different brushes that I like to use to show some texture. Maybe he had a broke nose or something. This is me exaggerating and just using some cool brushes that I enjoy to give it more texture. So at this point I was kind of debating, was like, man, I would love to have the Edmund Pettus Bridge in the background. For the people that do know John Lewis, they knew what he stood for and things like that, they would understand what this bridge means. And then to the people that don't, it's a learning, it's a conversation piece. So, you kind of like, hey, what is this? Why is he putting this in the background? What is it? What does this mean? Well, now you know. So it's just me kind of cleaning up the bridge and just testing some stuff out. Let's see what it would look like. Like at this point, it was kind of low. I didn't really care for the, like where it was, where I placed it, where I framed it. And then I also removed the gray box And then the other thing that you probably didn't get to see, I usually work on a dark gray background because it shows the highlights and the whites and the different gradients that I use a little easier than on this white. But since the image was so dark, I was like, let me go ahead and put this, just make it a white background, and actually like this better. And then I would play around and change the colors in the background and see what it look like on different color shirts and things like that. But yeah, as you can see right here, getting a little closer to the end, I added some details to the bridge and things like that, moved it, brought it down lower so you can actually see that it is a bridge. And then I put the text on there, Edmund Pettis Bridge, which people that know John Lewis and the people that don't will know that this is where it started. So as you can see, certain black parts on John Lewis's, like his body and things like that, even some on his face, I use that same brush that just looks like a bunch of thin lines. I love using that for like almost like I'm gonna say a comic book feel, but just a different texture that I love to use. It just shows certain areas of an image a little better for me, and I really enjoy using that. And I didn't show that I also made his far right hand that's in that fist in the back, I made that smaller. Like it was way too big. Then I kind of played around and I blurred it, and the blur looked good as well, but I was like, I wanted to see, let me see that. And I also blurred the bridge, but I needed people to know that it is a bridge, and I wanted them to be able to read that it is the Edmund Pettis Bridge. So but again, this is me going in and just adding more details and things like that, cleaning it up a little bit more. And once I flattened it way earlier at the beginning, now these are on different layers, like the blood and things like that, certain effects, the bridge is on its own layer. All this stuff's on its own layer at this point, except John Lewis himself. But little things that are on top of his body, those are on their own layers. Like the scars and things like that, I can just remove all of that stuff. And this is me going in, adding a little bit more damage to the beating that happened. So. And then I was playing around, I was like, man, let me have some blood dripping off this dude's, off his mouth, had his nose bleeding at one point. I was like, nah, I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be that bad. Even though it probably was that bad. I mean, he had broken ribs and things like that, so I can imagine he was bloodied up. But yeah, I'm just going back, continuing to clean some stuff up. Like I said, I when I'm designing, I'm thinking about prints, t-shirts, graphics, stickers. Like this would be a cool sticker to me, to put on stuff. So I'm thinking about ways I can stage this image. And I think you'll see a little further down the line where I had people in the background. And it looked good. I thought it looked pretty cool, but it also looked like he was in like almost like a ring or like a UFC fight or something like that. And it was just like commentators. So I think it's gonna show up towards the end of this video a little bit, and you'll kind of see me playing around with certain things. And like I said, that's all on its own layer as well. So you get to see that. So now I'm just going in there, adding more details, the darks, the shadows. And I ended up dropping the saturation on this, not the saturation, I'm sorry, the opacity on this bridge, just to I want it to be seen, but I want John Lewis to be the main highlight of this thing. So this is more like look at him, but you also know like that bridge is in the background. And since it's on its own layer, I can go back and raise the opacity if I want to, or do certain things with it. So right now I'm just going in, once again, being extra. Like I'm very like detail oriented. Like I can draw realistic images. One thing about my artwork, I want it to look like artwork as it pertains to me and my style. Of course, yes, I can draw something realistic and make it look photo real, but when I do that, people are gonna say it's AI and things like that. So I rather my artwork look rough, super colorful, almost like a graphic, but also still good enough to where it's gonna, you know, I have to compete as an artist. It's you know, there's so many amazing artists out there that like I have to stand out some way. So although this piece looks realistic enough, it's definitely pushed. I definitely stylize a lot of things, you know, the angles. And that's another thing about when I draw, I like to use like harsh angles. This is not as bad as what I usually do. Bad meaning like I really like to straight lines like crazy, but this is not one of my one of those. So maybe we'll do another one. And then I had in the early one, the video that I don't know why I didn't record, but I had John Lewis in like a torn dress shirt, and it was hanging all off, and that's what was supposed to be wrapped around his waist. But I just thought it was too much. I thought it took away too much of the. If I was making full body, then absolutely. You know, maybe his suit was torn off, and you know, and then I had a tie wrapped on him. You know, it was alright. I just thought it was too much. So right here, I'm just going in. Once again, just John has that. You know, he's got that very prominent nose. So I wanted to make sure. Had to get that right. Nose, lips, and like I said, it's exaggerated a little bit. And this is just me zooming in, zooming out. I thinned out his mustache a little bit more. Just kind of followed the reference image a little bit more. Started adding like, you know, like scars and birthmarks and moles on his skin that he has. Just extra details. And I love doing this. And then in the earlier stages, I also had another brush, so I made him have like a black eye and all this other stuff. Like I said, it looked okay, but it was just too much. I didn't want that as the main piece. So I went with the like the bruised eye and lip and things like that. Just stuff that will be swollen and real subtle. Usually, like I said, I work with a lot of colors, but for this, I didn't. Like I said, I wanted to be as gritty as possible. It wasn't a happy day, so I think this black and white with the subtle red fits a little bit more in my opinion, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Just continuing to clean this stuff up. like I said, I had a lot of fun doing this piece. I could have pushed the design way more like I usually do, but I wanted to make something, and you know, I'll probably send this piece to his family and relatives to see if they want to do something with it. Because at my graduation, John Lewis, he wanted to make a children's book, and I was gonna do the artwork for it, but obviously he passed. So maybe down the line, you know, we'll still get that children's book for good trouble. So we'll see. And once again, you can see right here, I'm continuing to, I went with a really fine, thin brush, just a regular brush, but it's so thin that it won't make like really big lines. So this is how I cross-hatch certain dark areas, and that's what I was doing. This area right here, like I said, I was thinning out his mustache, just getting little details together. Like I said, I'm very picky when it comes to certain things when I draw. But for the most part, I work fairly loose for the most part, which means like you're gonna see my pen strokes and things like that. Like I said, I want it to look like artwork for me. Like I like rough drawings and things like that. And a lot of times, you know, me being a frame by frame animator as well, like the rough stuff almost looks better than the actual cleaned up stuff, in my opinion, for the most part. When you go back and look at it, it looks beautiful. So once again, this is just me playing around. I was gonna add like highlights to his hair with the curls and things like that, but changed my mind. Like I said, too much. Just want to keep it simple. And this is me just kind of, the white highlight was going into his hair because that is on its own layer. So this is me just going in, really honing in on the details of his face. And you see I brought his chin, his jawline down just a little bit more, still exaggerated and all of that, but you know, if you look at his cheekbones, his eyes, you know, as he got older, the bags under his eye, he has a very prominent details in his face. So it was real cool to hit those marks. This is me still getting the cheeks, you know, the cheeks that he's known for. And I'm gonna go in there and I think I'm gonna clean the ear. Yeah, clean the ear up a little bit more. And like I said, I'm looking at a picture of John Lewis for a lot of this stuff. But the picture I used was him straight on. So it wasn't the easiest. I had to work with what I had. And for the most part, it worked out pretty well. This is me with that thin brush again. Still just black, but it's so thin that just cleaning up the ear and making sure I get the shape of his ear right. I'm gonna come down here and really get the bottom part of his ear and kind of round that out. You'll see. Yeah, that's what there it is. So I just want to make sure I got all his features correct. This is me just going in, making sure I get the